Good afternoon, Tex. How are you?
I'm breathing.
That's a positive.
Yes, it is.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Tex is feeling under the weather.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Yeah, I'm just getting over a cold myself, so must be going around.
Hi, Johnny. Hi, Uday. Hi, Neil.
Hello. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Tex.
Welcome.
Hi, Jonathan.
We'll give people a few minutes to join Uday, so not everyone joins on time. So we'd like to give people a chance to join.
Sure.
And hi, Bosco.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I know some of you actually, but nevertheless.
So I'll paste the agenda into the chat. Hi, Leah. We've got quite a few items on the agenda, but don't worry if we don't get to all of them. Hi, Nicola. If we don't get to all of them, we can postpone some until next week, and we can obviously also prioritize the things that matter to this group. So I'll pin that to the chat. Does anyone have anything else they would like to add to the agenda, or anything they would like to prioritize? Hi, Michaela.
Hi.
Welcome.
Can you guys see me?
Yes, we can see you. You're sideways on, Michaela.
Yeah. It's I have to screen. I have to move it here. How are you guys?
Hi, Marcus.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sebastian. Welcome. Hi, Adam.
The old guard and the new guard is here today, right? Is it so?
Yes, I'm not even going to try to figure out Quoracy, Sebastian. Okay, so I think everyone has joined who's likely joined. People can join a bit later. The Tex, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. Okay, great. So Tex is the TSC secretary. He sent the invitations out to everyone who was elected earlier today. Yes, we're missing Duncan Coots. And I don't think Ben is here either. So the first item I had on the agenda was the committee election outcome. And I'd originally penciled Bosco into that, but Tex, do you want to speak to it?
Sure. As far as the election outcome, we do have Kevin Hammond, who has been reelected, of course. We are joined now by Ryan, Uday, Leandros, or Leo, who we have here, and Sung as well, who was with us last week. So they have all been elected to the committee for the next year moving forward. That's about it. We've sent out some welcome emails. If you guys are needing some direct support, please feel free to reach out to myself or Kevin directly. We will also figure out some other points of contact, maybe not in this meeting, but in the next week or two as we work through the transition here.
So congratulations, everyone, on your election. As Tex says, we'll need to figure out the transition. So we have outgoing members, we have incoming members, and we'll need to make sure we get some overlap, some continuity. So I'm not quite sure what the procedure is for that, Tex. The initial step is to make sure that everyone is on the Slack channels that we have set up for TSC members.
I think the only one here, well, actually, Leo and Uday, both of you have been sent a request. I don't know if there are any issues joining the Slack channel.
Great. So congratulations to everyone joining us, and thank you everyone who is leading the committee, who has served so diligently over the last 12 months. Your contribution has been absolutely fantastic, so thank you very much for that. The next item I had on the agenda was the Intersect annual report. So we've been asked to prepare an annual report for the TSC. This is for presentation by Intersect next week. So if I could ask everyone who's served on the committee for the last year to provide input from that. I've summarised what I think are the main activities in the channel, but it would be great if everyone could contribute to that. It's very short notice thing. It's being presented next week. Tex, you informed me on Monday. I think I've only had time to produce a summary, but here's what I've got as a list of major points, but these will need to be fleshed out into a full report. And I've probably omitted some important activities that TSC members have done. So looking back, I think we've been pretty active over the last year. It's great to do that, and obviously we need to present to the community all the positive things that this group has done. Thanks.
The first events are taking place this weekend, so there is a preference to get this in as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So, I'm not going to assume to make this a top priority for absolutely everybody, but if there are any of these topics that can be combined, if we can get to something that might be 3 or 5 paragraphs, and I mean, we don't have to be expansive, but obviously the detail is important. The goal here is to get the input from the community yourselves, as you guys have been the ones working on and reviewing these things. So
great. So I think first step, as I said, is are there major items from this list that have been omitted? What I can do is put together a document in the shared drive, and everyone should have access to that big. So I will start to flesh this out from this initial set of headings and aim to get a draft ready, Tex, even if it's not complete, by tomorrow. a first draft. So apologies for the time pressure on that, but we were notified quite late of the need to do this. There is also, I think, an example the product committee has produced. So if you could share that in the TSC channel text, that would be great. You're reminding me that we also need to give access to the shared drive to the incoming members if that hasn't already happened. So obviously incoming members won't be able to contribute strongly to the writing of the report, but your eyes on it. Any questions you've got, that'll be great, and it'll give you some idea about what the TSC actually does. So I think it's good background reading material for you. Sebastian.
Did I hear that correctly? Like technical report to be done end of day?
By the end of tomorrow, I think.
Okay, which is very short notice, like 1 day.
Yes,
And I
it's
think
great.
every one of us has like maybe 2 or 3 hours a lot per week for the whole attending TSC's discussions and communications around, right?
Yeah. So as I said, I'll aim to get the first draft done tomorrow, so it can be presented at meetings over the weekend. I wasn't aware there was quite such a short deadline. I think originally it was said next week for the meetings. So if you can't contribute by close of play tomorrow, don't worry. Let's just get the first draft done. But the ask now is to think: are there major items that we should be including? Okay, so just look through that list. Is there anything major? Don't worry if you can't write about it, because at least we can mention it in the report.
Would it make sense that we collect the relevant bits, right? And we have transcripts and everything and summaries of all the history, right? And then use some summarization of it, but focusing on basically the whitelist we gave, which is notable stuff. And then we should have like, what's the expansiveness of the whole thing? Like 2 or 3 page report. We have an example you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a few paragraphs, Sebastian. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but it's going to take me too much time to go through all the transcripts of all the TSC meetings over the last year and then try to summarize that and put it into some form. So this is what I was doing as a shorthand.
I mean, language models are good in summarizing if you check on their output. So maybe our concrete task could be, let's all contribute to a list what we see notable points. We use that as kind of what we deem as content of the report, and then find the maybe 2 or 3 sentences each with maybe a nice reference to when it was discussed and how. Using that would be, I think, if that works for you, Tax, maybe where this requirement comes from, this what the annual report is like. It's the summary, right? Basically, it's not something new.
Correct. Yes, it's just a summary. So
yeah, if you can give me all the list, I can volunteer in putting it together. If it's a mere summary of what happened, I mean, I need to check whether I have access to all of the notes and so on prior to my appointment, which was in April or May, something like that. But if you have that,
Great. So you take ownership of this, Sebastian?
end of day tomorrow is possible. End of day today, no chance.
We don't need to do it by the end of day today.
I need a list of relevant material you want to have include, like the bullet point list of content by end of day today, and then I can get it done end of day tomorrow.
Marcus.
I cannot find it right now. I quickly tried to find it, but I remember there is already a list of monthly committee activities where TSC is only a part of it. When I read it, this was like 5 to 6 pages, and half of it was always TSC activities. But there was a folder somewhere, a shared folder. It should exist. I'm not sure if it was updated until or during this year, but at least in the beginning of this year there was something like this.
So Tax or Bosco, would you maybe be able to pointers at the reference sources. At a minimum, there are the weekly minutes, Sebastian, so we can always refer to those as the primary source of activity.
I'll work with the secretaries to get the information, and I'll do the editing myself.
Great.
Or
Thank you very much.
with help of language models, but that must be accepted on this notice. Period.
Right. So I'm saying close the play tomorrow. When you said weekend tax, when is it, Saturday or Sunday that the first meeting is taking place?
I believe it may be as early as Friday, actually.
Okay, so that needs to be out by the end of tomorrow for a first report. Great. Thank you very much. So we've invited, if you're moving on, I think we can close that down. We've invited 2 guests with us to cover issues that they're having, technical issues that they're having. Michaela Nuzzi from Harmonics Lab. Michaela is joining us as a guest. Michaela, would you like to tell us what your concerns are about nested transaction, please?
Yes. Nested transaction turns out to be a somewhat controversial topic, but the thing is, at the base, my problem with it is that, of course, being a change of the ledger means more code, more complexity. And in exchange for this complexity, we are not really solving any problem. Meaning that anything that you could use nested transaction for, you can do with normal transactions. So this is my main argument. There are a bunch of arguments that one may classify as opinion, but the core argument is that we are, of course, planning to change the ledger, so adding complexity, and this complexity does not give Cardano or Cardano developers any meaningful advantage over what we have now. Other concerns are, well, I obviously have to maintain various tools for developers, libraries, and stuff. With the proposed change, we are affecting not only the ledger itself, but the part of the ledger that developers on Cardano are most interacting with. So it is the most delicate, I would say, part of the ledger from the developer perspective, like a developer on top of Cardano. Of course, for developer, it's just a change like another. But for that developer or anyone who's looking to build on top of Cardano, they will mainly interface only with transactions. So this is an important change in the structure of the transaction. One thing that particularly scares me is that nested transaction requires signatures inside the body, meaning that it's very likely, and it's also very common that maybe someone builds a transaction on the back end, sends it to the front end, it deserializes it, allows the user to sign, it reserializes it, and by doing so, the nested transaction changes because CBOR is what it is. And so the signature is no longer valid. So this is a lot of headache. It's not that big of an issue, like you need to spend a bunch of hours debugging, but you can fix it, but still it's possible pain. And then finally, it worries me how this feature can be used, meaning that the state is, in particular in the DeFi, but not necessarily just DeFi, in general, in all applications. The fact is that Cardano was designed since the beginning to do as much work as possible in the off-chain and then verify that work on chains to minimize the on-chain load. The thing is that the more you move stuff off-chain, the less the on-chain is useful. You could, in theory, do everything you want off-chain, then provide a signature, okay, we trust you, and move on. So smart contracts, it depends on what you want to, what your trade-offs are. this feature, nested transaction in particular, move most of what you want to validate on chain off chain in a more than necessary way, meaning that at the end, like the way you use nested transaction is you allow the user to sign a partial transaction with what you want the user to be sure of, and then you necessarily, since the purpose of a transaction is to have unbalanced transaction that someone else comes and fulfills, that implies that that transaction is not valid without a third party. Now, this might be desirable. It might not be desirable. It doesn't, as we have current scripts, current smart contracts, current way to develop application. Nothing prevents to requiring a third party as it is now. It just makes it easier to require this third party, and this third party is assumed for the transaction to be valid. So we are removing the entire peer-to-peer thing the moment you use nested transactions. And one possible attack that I didn't see discussed is MEV. I call it MEV because the definition of MEV is maximal extractable value. Some people interpret MEV just as front running. It's not necessarily as front running. If you prefer, we can just call it value extraction. The thing is, when you have a nested transaction, the signature of the user is only valid for that nested transaction. It's not valid for the entire transaction. So what happens is the nested transaction itself is valid on its own, even though incomplete. And there may be other nested transactions, or the parent transaction may fulfill that nested transaction. However, there is no guarantee that that nested transaction is in the honest parent transaction. So what happens is any node between the user and the block producer that we don't know. So any the node where the transaction was first submitted, any node that propagates that transaction, and also the block, especially the block producer, can modify the parent transaction. So in a way that it takes the nested transaction inside, and it forgets the parent transaction, and it adds its own parent transaction. The reason to do this is because, of course, there is some allowance in the, usually if you want, in the nested transaction. Otherwise, you're not really solving a problem. If there is no allowance, you can just use a normal transaction that the user agrees entirely. So there is this assumption of the allowance, and that allowance can be extracted. So this is a potential attack that I didn't see discussed. When I raised it, it was quickly dismissed as with the argument, okay, you can require either a script or a public key in the parent transaction from the nested transaction. And this,
Michele, can I pause you for a second, because I think that Neil has many comments to say already on what has been done, and he made a comment in the chat saying that it's probably too much and we need to go through this step by step so that we can have a discussion on each of the concern and not go through everything at once. So if you can pause, please, and give the opportunity to Neil to ask a question or make a remark or whatever. But Neil, you're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, I would also say, Nicola, what we might want to do is, rather than having a full discussion about all the points, to agree how to proceed, so we get a proper discussion about all the issues. Michele, you launched straight into this, and you didn't tell, for the benefit of people watching this, and perhaps some people on the committee, could you explain what a nested transaction is, please?
I explain it.
Oh, could I try explaining it and tell me if I'm
go ahead now.
Okay, so my understanding is a nested transaction is a set of transactions that will act as a single atomic change to the ledger, right? And they can reference them. They can reference internally outputs from transactions that are inside the network transactions. So they become an atomic unit of transactions that are either executed or not executed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one, right? And what this gives you is the ability to do things like engage in a transaction that converts a stable coin into ADA to pay for something else to happen. Right?
Yeah.
Now, my first point is, you said that there was nothing in this added nothing to the semantic power of the ledger.
Yeah.
Currently, I would disagree with that statement, right? Because it basically adds atomicity. You cannot do these. So the reason why nested transactions are there, in my understanding, right,
Yeah.
is to perform an atomic action so that either all of those transactions succeed or all of them fail.
Okay. Can I respond to this?
Well, I mean, first of all, am I incorrect in anything I've said so far?
It is. The premise is correct. The conclusion is not, in my point of view.
Okay, so are you saying that actually you can achieve atomic transactions, this type of atomicity in the current ledger?
Yes.
How?
Okay. So that is where I would like to explain further, if I may.
Yeah, right, go on.
Yes. So the thing is, as one way to see it is, as you explain it, the practical definition does not require that way to see it. The practical definition is that just you have input, output, and whatever transaction includes, and these may not be are less strict than the current rules. So meaning that the transaction needs to be balanced and all that stuff.
No. I think the key thing to me when we discussed all of this nested transactions absolutely ages ago, right?
Yeah.
The fact is, it gave you the ability to perform a indivisible atomic action on the ledger.
Yeah.
So a set of transactions succeeded or they collectively failed, right? You had just said that you can. What I'm looking for is you made the assertion. I'm sorry to be. I'm being right. You made the assertion that this adds no value, and I'm saying that is the key value that nested transactions add.
Yes.
Is atomicity. Demonstrate to me that atomicity exists without using transactions.
So when you talk about these, like we have many transactions that we want to respect a final global property, right? That is the atomicity.
No, they need to be atomic. This is
the entire, like transaction A, B, C, they need to be atomic. You need all of three succeed or not succeed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Transaction A, B, and C, each of these performs an action, right?
Yes. They transform the ledger. They perform a transformation of the ledger. Yes.
There is nothing preventing these three transactions to be merged into one. So what the ledger cares about when it is an S transaction or a normal transaction?
No. Sorry, but you say they can be merged into one.
Yes.
We can already merge three transactions into one transaction without using nested transactions?
Yes.
Can I chip in, Neil?
Yes, please. I'm trying to get you. You see where I'm trying to go, Duncan? Yes.
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, if you step back from signing for a moment, you can say, well, the effects of if you stick with, just to keep things simple, stick with simple value transactions, no scripts, right? You can combine, any combination of UTXO transactions into one UTXO transaction, provided they stay within the limits. Paying out A, paying out B. But the key point is that everybody has to sign the same transaction body. And that's where I think the difference in the atomicity comes in, right?
Okay.
Is that you can separately sign this and someone else can sign that. And then they can be later combined into an atomic transaction.
Okay.
So Neil, supposing I have a swap with you, Neil. I want to pay you, you want to pay me. We could jointly sign a transaction where I pay you and you pay me. But we both have to sign the same transaction body.
Yeah.
Or and this is where the nested transactions comes in. I can sign one saying I will pay you, and you can sign one that says you will pay me, and then somebody else or one of us can put those together and make a single atomic transaction that does the combination.
Yes.
Whereas otherwise, you would have the problem of me having one, you having the other, and those two wouldn't necessarily be. If we wanted to extend.
The argument that I'm trying to raise is that a problem, really? Because
But it changes what you can do with application design, coordination. How much do you have to do? Off-chain. How much off-chain coordination do you need to do to be able to?
There is still some form of off-chain competition. So if I may respond to the first argument, the atomicity is an example. Is we have three transactions A, B, C, and the ledger. What it cares about is we start from A and we end in C, right? So the atomicity is just what happens to the ledger before the transaction and after the transaction. So there is nothing preventing the atomicity. We can do it. You would do it differently, as Duncan was saying. So you would need maybe perhaps some off-chain coordination or some way of communication, not even coordination. But in principle, there is nothing preventing it. There is nothing preventing this atomicity. So we want ABC to happen all or none. It is just a normal transaction that starts from A and ends in C. Regarding the off-chain communication, that falls back in my opinion on what I was trying to say before. That in order to prevent certain attacks, you may want to require some top-level script. You may want to require some top-level signature. At the end, what that means is that top-level script enforces some known rules. Emphasis on known. Otherwise, you wouldn't include that script. And the same goes for a known private key that signs the signature. That requires that third party to be aware of the transaction. So that third party may as well build the transaction from A to C. So in that respect, I would even argue that if you're trying to take advantage of this feature, it might be even more efficient by just building a normal transaction with those known rules, and then everybody agrees to those rules. Otherwise, you are open to value extraction and to transaction modification. It becomes much more complex, and so many more things that you need to care about if you want to have a secure quote-unquote protocol than just having a normal transaction that everybody agrees and it is immutable in the atomicity. The entire A to C is immutable. You know that is what you sign and that is what you get.
So thank you for raising this, Michaela. And so we've had a brief discussion here about the issues. The question is how to proceed to address them. What I would propose is if you could summarize in a few sentences your concerns.
Mm-hmm.
You've already discussed these with the Ledger Working Group, as I understand it, but you're not satisfied with the response that you've had from that working group. So what I would say is the best way to progress is almost certainly to have a conversation with them where members of the TSC could be involved and trying to adjudicate the discussion, because obviously if there are concerns, what we don't want is to have them overridden, to have things railroaded through. But equally, if the concerns aren't valid, we don't want to be disrupting our work, which is valuable to the community. Okay, and just because you might not use a particular feature, I don't think we should say, well, we shouldn't include it, right? It may be useful.
Yeah, no, it's not about using it or not. It's about the implications. So if we do include this feature, how will it be used? What are the advantages and disadvantages of this feature? And are we okay with the cost of implementing the feature and the cost of using the feature in exchange for the eventual benefits? as I understand and I agree, there is a benefit in the asynchronous signing, but it comes at a great cost. And in my opinion, that cost is not worth the facilitation, because it is a facilitation of asynchronous signing. So
Great.
it's a matter of costs.
Yeah. So, as I said, if you could summarize those concerns, then we can organize some focused discussion.
Where would I send? Where would I
Send them, you can send them to text or give them to me. I can pass them on.
I'll send it to you, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. And then we'll aim to progress the discussion and sort out the technical issues. I mean, it seems there's need for some kind of pressure release, as Sebastian is saying here,
Yes.
some kind of adjudication. Great. So thank you very much. I propose to move on to the rest of the agenda, since we've got a number of items that we should at least mention. Is Marcin here? So the next item I
Yes.
put on the agenda.
Hello,
would-
everybody.
Marcin. So again, Marcin is appealing to arts,
Yes,
and Neil, you'll drive the discussion.
Yeah, as you said, you put my name down for this. I had a quick chat with I had a quick sidelight conversation with Marcin. Thinking back about the conversation that was had about this in the TSC meeting or 2 meetings ago, I think there's been some confusion as to the ask. So I think let's see if I can clarify what the ask is. The ask is that these two repositories come under the ownership of Intersect, not because there's any need for any funding to look after them, because that's currently covered by the contracts that are being let, but because that there are natural maintainers for these repositories that cannot be added as maintainers due to IOG's internal policies. So basically, it's really about the ownership of these residing with Intersect, and that because currently the Cardano node, the networking consensus, and the DMQ node, all of which the DMQ node is a new repository in the last week, all require this. And because the ownership of these particular things is in IO, and because the ownership is there, natural maintainers cannot be added to the maintainer list due to IO's policies. And that's what the suggestion is, that the ownership is handed over to Intersect to allow for a better and wider participation. I think that's that's the nicest way I can do it, right? Basically, original authors can't be added as maintainers at the moment. Is that a reasonable summary, Marcin?
yes. There are also other things that make this decision actually quite reasonable. So both of these repositories are core components of Ouroboros network, Ouroboros consensus, and probably a few other components of Cardano node. So if let's say that there is a security issue in one of them, then IOG should might not be able to do the work because it's focused on something else. And what then? Like, it's more reasonable to actually all of the core components be in the same organization, so that it has access to wider developer community, not just what IO is thinking about. The other thing is that, since these are really core components of Cardano node, they must be maintained. Like it's not a option to not maintain them, because then, like, if we decide not to maintain them, we really decided not to maintain Cardano node. And I think that's not yet where we are. And still, like, the cost of maintenance of these libraries is not that high. It never has been, since they're quite mature. And another point is that it actually puts IOG in a very like very exposed position, because this is something that is controlled solely by IOG and not by the rest of the community. So if if something happens, then people might not be able to write new extensions to Ouroboros protocol without coordination with IOG, if that requires some work on type protocols, for example. Is this the right thing for the ecosystem? That's the question.
So the argument, as I understand it, Martin, is that these things that we need for the Cardano node, that they are things, therefore, that we should be maintaining via Intersect in order to support the node and development of other Ouroboros protocols, and that IOG should not have ownership.
I think the key thing here is the ownership question.
Yeah.
Right, not the maintain. You can subcontract the maintenance, which we have done. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just saying it's the ownership question.
Yeah. Okay, understood. Tex, you've had your hand raised for a while. So just to give further context for everyone else, my understanding is that the OSC has voted not to adopt these repos, right? So, but that doesn't mean that we should necessarily vote no. There might be what we'd be doing is saying there's a technical reason to adopt these repos. Tex.
So due to timing, the TSC meeting happens prior to the OSC meeting. So it's my understanding that both committees are receiving an appeal on this decision. So the OSC should be approached tomorrow. I don't know if that's by Martin specifically or if that's just following through with Arnaud. In any case, this issue should be a topic of discussion for OSC tomorrow. What I was going to say, and I don't want to get too far down the line, I am starting to look at this a little bit more from the detailed program management side of things with repository management, right? And I feel that in line with the open source committee and the product committee, there should be some view of what all is considered relevant and needs to be under the same ownership, right, or organization for all of Cardano. What is our true development outlay? What is our risk appetite for number of new repositories within a set period of time? It's getting quite down into the details, but I gave an example to a developer yesterday, which is the third or fourth request I've received in the last month for another new repository related somewhat to the core of Cardano, whether that be a separate instance or a separate tooling or another dependency. And so the question is how technically relevant is that? Again, does that ownership or maintenance need to be under Intersect? And is adding this all still in line with the, as would currently be agreed to, the 2030 vision, or so on and so forth. So it does kind of broach a wider topic that may not be the exact topic of discussion here, but just another thing of awareness as I'm hearing all of the relevant bits of discussion. The main point was just to say the TSC is getting an opportunity to discuss or have an appeal before the OSC does tomorrow.
Thanks, Tex. Sebastian.
All right. So it's about the type protocols package and the IOSIM package, as I saw on the agenda. Both are in the transitive closure of dependency of the Cardano node, which is currently the source of the Cardano node, the aggregation of everything, right? The source of the transitive closure is within the Intersect MBO organization right now. There is an open source governance policy, which is the TSC is overseeing in terms of escalation or on maintenance, if there is a need be on these repos, right? So that means for Intersect, like for the Cardano community, there should be a desire to have as much of the supply chain which goes into this package under a smooth, similar way of governance and kind of deciding on if there is maintenance problems or escalations. So if now we have the maintainer coming in for like some of these packages which are not yet in the same page, we should appreciate that and adopt it if possible. But if it's not possible or it's not even wanted by a maintainer because not the 100% supply chain of the Cardano node will ever be in the Intersect MBO's control, that's perfectly fine too, as long as we have ways to kind of act on, like, if there is a need for a change which we can't get out through like the ownership, right? So there is often always the possible to fork things and maintain things then in our variant, like for, I guess we have a Lipsodium fork and so on. If somebody offers to simplify the supply chain, I think we should be for it. Technically, it makes sense. If now there is something with budgetary concerns or so, it's not our business. But technically, I would say it makes sense, and I would like to motion a vote on whether this would technically make sense.
Duncan.
Oops, there we go. Yeah, I mean, I second what Neil said earlier and what Sebastian said just now, that it is within the closure of the dependencies of the node. I mean, I am an original author. No, well, Marcin and I are original authors of both of these packages, so you know, we're sort of quite close to them. I second what Neil said earlier about, you know, there are maintainers who would be available to work on these things who are outside of IOG, so that's the point. For that exact same reason, I have to abstain on a vote because a colleague of mine has put themselves forward, I think, to the for the maintainer retainer program for one of these packages. There's another third company that got in contact with me a while ago saying, you know, we would like to help maintain part of IOSIM. That is obviously easier if it's owned under Intersect. And yeah, just to reiterate the point, I mean, they are part of the Cardano node. Yes, okay, Kevin was just saying, you know, the decision at the time was they have uses beyond that, but they are, you know, a part of that closure. They were written, you know, I wrote them for the, and Marcin wrote them for the, when we were building the node. That was what they were built for. But of course, we built them in a generic a way as possible so that they could be reused. And they have been reused in multiple other Cardano-related projects. So yeah, I mean, I think just technically it makes perfect sense. If you know, if we want the Haskell reference implementation to live with Intersect, it makes sense for these to be part of it. And it's not clear to me why they were left out originally. I don't think that rationale makes any sense to leave them out. So I would, yeah, say move them. But I will abstain because a colleague of mine will be applying for maintainership for one of those packages.
Maybe I just want to ask you again, Duncan, as you have been one of the authors, right? There is no degradation in like open sourceness, right, or ability to contribute, whether it be in the Intersect MBO contrary to input-output HK1, as you can see so far, because there could be a, like, if neither input-output HK nor Intersect MBO is a good host, right, then maybe a for project-specific organization is the thing, because we might have in the Venn diagram.
If that would become necessary, but I don't. It seems
Yeah.
unlikely. I mean,
Yeah.
Intersect is a community organization. I don't think Cubic or myself would have any difficulty with, making contributions there. Whereas in practice, we would have difficulties with it being under IOG, because IOG will not cooperate with us. It's as simple as that.
So you would appreciate it. That's good, right? And if somebody's offering unification there and input-output HK is also fine with this, then I don't see anything speaking against it. Nobody said no so far for a reason, no?
Martian.
I will add one more comment on top of what Duncan said. So Cubic, whose original authors of part of the IOSIM, the IOSIM PRR, which is actually one of the most complex pieces of code that I ever seen, and help from them to maintain it is really a great thing for IOSIM. It's been they've been very helpful when we had to debug issues in it, and every time it happens, it takes days to just get to the bottom of it. So having them available in such instances is a really great help for the benefit of Cardano.
Tex, do you want the final say, and then I'll call for a vote?
Yes, that was going to be the push, is to get the vote going. And I believe, again, this is just for IOSIM and typed protocols, not for CERDOC. CERDOC not being considered in this case. What I did want to mention, though, is that I do believe it's still important that between the TSC and the OSC, we formulate some rules or structure in alignment with the open source governance policy. Can I get a determinant on these things? Again, there's another reference, but I won't clog up the meeting with that.
Yeah. So what I think I'd propose would be some kind of vote in principle, either in favour or against supporting the adoption of these repos within the Intersect organization. Neil, do you want to formulate a motion?
Okay, I was going to try and type. So I think basically that the TSC recognizes that these are part of the transitive closure of things for the Haskell node, and that their logical position and for ongoing continuity should be that they are owned by Intersect. And that's what we're voting for. Something like that. Does that make sense? Right? We're basically not asking necessarily for whether it gets supported with money or all the rest of it. I think is a secondary issue. First issue is that basically, it becomes more useful to everybody if it's under Intersect. Okay. Do you want to amend those, Sebastian?
Yeah, maybe precise, and any software component that is willing to offer the maintainer access through GitHub hosting on the whole supply chain of the Cardano node. Like if they offer it, right, we may agree to it. Technically, it makes sense.
So I've made the general case. I made the specific case. You're making a more general case here, is what you're saying.
I'm saying what I want to kind of precise is not that everything needs to be within the Intersect MBO. It's perfectly fine to have the byte string package not be owned by Intersect MBO, right? But anything which is offering it, right, we should appreciate it because it allows us for a more uniform control on the supply chain, or insurance or like
Okay, so I'm gonna-
as you say, right?
I'm going to suggest we vote about the specific first, right?
Of course, yeah.
And then we can say that, you know, I would suggest we do the specific for these two and say that, you know, we see this as an example of a general principle. Okay. Yeah. Oh, got a poll. Thank you.
Yeah. So Tex, formally, who is eligible to vote? All members outgoing and incoming, and those whose term possess.
In this case, all in attendance, yes. All verified elected committee members at one time or another, yes. For
So
this
that
one,
includes both incoming and outgoing members. So
Correct.
Johnny, you are eligible to vote if you wish.
Okay. Heck, could you put a third option, which is abstain, please? So that Duncan can abstain.
Can I still interrupt? I also originally came with with 3 packages because there's a third one, like really tiny, which is a dependency of a sub package in type protocols. Type protocol, which is called type protocols docs, which allows us to render documentation for type protocols. It's called Serdoc library. It has been written by Wildtype when they work on the CAS agent. And it's in IO. I'm not sure where it should be, really. But there should be some discussion about that one as well.
Can we raise that as a separate issue and just vote on these two? I think that's fine.
Yes, that's great.
Has everyone had an opportunity to participate in the poll? I'm not seeing an abstain option. Did we have an abstain?
No, text says that basically the abstain, you can't edit a poll. Okay, so it'll be recorded by chat. Okay. So you're going to close the poll, Kevin?
If anyone wants any longer to participate, please tell me now. Otherwise, I will close the poll.
Next time we could actually open the poll in the beginning and then have a discussion about it, and in the end everyone should have made up their mind. Maybe this is interesting too, as a mode.
You have to. The problem is you have to define the question properly, Sebastian.
Which helps the discussion, right? What is relevant and what not, right? If you can state the problem, we can have a more focused discussion.
So I've closed the poll. Hopefully everyone can see the results. So according to the information that I'm seeing, we have 8 votes for, 0 votes against. Could we count abstentions as well, please? Who would like to? If you would like to abstain, please raise your hand now.
That's Duncan.
Duncan is abstaining.
Okay.
Is anyone else abstaining?
I think the missing vote is Ben, who's not here. Is that true?
I'm not sure, because I think we could have up to 15 votes now.
Okay. Okay, so 9 is still more than half of 15. So
we have a majority. So it's carried by a majority. Tex, if you could you record that and pass that on to the OSC tomorrow? I assume we don't need to present that to the OSC, or Adam could present that outcome to the OSC. Thank you, everyone. So I'm conscious of the time. That I had some other items on the agenda. I will quickly scan those to see if there's anything critical that we need to cover. So the other items you had on the agenda, feedback from the Cardano summit, this would be an opportunity for Marcus, for example, to give us some feedback on that, but purely as an information item. Impending governance shutdown, I think I really ought to raise this with this group because it's a major concern for Cardano at this point in time. So the situation is that the Cardano Atlantic Council is proposing to resign its seat on the Constitutional Committee with effect within the next week or two. What will then happen is, because of the minimum committee size setting at 7, that will mean that the Constitutional Committee cannot ratify any governance actions. So any governance actions that the Constitutional Committee is involved in, which include things like Treasury withdrawals, parameter updates, and hard forks, will not be ratifiable. So we have something of a governance crisis developing. Intersect are holding a snap election to replace that committee member with a new elected committee member. I think we should consider whether some or all of us would be willing to stand as Constitutional Committee members in order to make sure that we don't enter a period of governance shutdown and provide technical input to the Constitutional Committee. Tex or Bosco, do you know, so the nominations have opened, as I understand it. Do you know when they close? When is Intersect closing the nomination period?
I don't know that information.
I believe it's only open for a few days.
Correct, but so it opened on Monday, as I understood it.
Hang on just a second.
So this is now a question whether TSC would want to be a body voting into the CC.
So
and it's not a technical discussion or so anything, right?
Yeah, this is yeah. So so one thing we could decide to do, Sebastian, would be to put forward the whole TSC as a Constitutional Committee member. Now, that would be quite an onerous role and quite an extension to the TSC duties. But I'm raising the issue because this group contains a lot of experts, and it might be that individually or collectively, some of the members might want to stand as Constitutional Committee as a Constitutional Committee member. I think it would take quite a detailed discussion for us to decide if that we would stand as a complete body. That would be quite a change in remit for this group, and there would be a lot of responsibility to that. So I don't think I would recommend it. And given the timescales, I don't think we have time to debate it. So I've raised. Sorry, go on, Sebastian.
It's not an impossible thought, right? But maybe it's not the most desirable committee member, right? As you can imagine.
Question? So I'll put my hand up first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they talk about it in the singular, like it could be one person, but actually it could also be a group of people coming together to do this. Yes, that's what I'm trying. Right. So either of those solutions are possible. I'm just checking that we understand.
There are existing CC members that are consortia, collectives, multi-sig.
Yeah.
You know.
And if basically a number of people were willing to get together and do this and put themselves forward, how do we form the consortium? Because I would be willing as part of a consortium, in principle, I would be willing as part of a consortium to take this role on, right? But I would strongly, I think it has to be individuals, not. I think the TSC trying to take it on as a role, that would muddy the muddy the waters in a strange way, whereas individuals can take it on. We're not. I do not consider the TSC to be a body, a legal person, right? Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. I think I'm making. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's lots of coordination, right? Taking the to put the governance action, everyone needs to multi-sign it, but if you want to be multiple keys coming together and coordination effort, right?
So we need someone in that set of people who can run the. I mean, I understand this. I understand all these tools exist, and someone has to basically just turn the handle. But actually, that as with open source software, turning the handle is not usually just simple as you know how to do it. So we would need someone who is capable of doing that and training up a second or third person. But I think more than willing to do that. What's unclear from the communication is whether they're looking for individuals or consortia to come forward, right?
The call is open, Neil, to either individuals or to consortium.
Sebastian, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to work out.
It sounds like, right? So it's really, hey, by the way, there is this governance thing. You all are super knowledgeable Cardano people. Wouldn't you be interested, right? That's basically it. And I think that's the agenda item what we had so far.
Yeah, I'm making this group aware of the consequences of there not being a Constitution Committee member. So all governance actions or almost all governance actions are going to be frozen until there is a new Constitution member. So it's a pretty serious situation. So in particular, the parameter update that we've been discussing can't happen. If anyone is waiting, hard fork, no hard fork can happen. If anyone is waiting for a treasury withdrawal, that can't happen.
Yeah, maybe as Ryan puts it, is there a technical discussion to be had about is like a constant number? Is it good, or is it more like a share, right? Which can go down when somebody resigns willingly, right?
Yeah. So the I think the min committee size. When it was set by the governance parameter working group, they may have misunderstood what that parameter meant.
No.
Oh, you did understand.
Sorry, just no. As a member of the governance parameters working group, there was no misunderstanding of what parameters meant. There was an intentional decision to make a minimum of 7 in order to balance out the 3 founding entities that were automatically installed as CC members, and the intent was to ensure that there was a majority of community-based members against the 3 founding entities. What happened was a 4th entity was installed automatically in the form of Intersect, and the balance became 4 to 3 in pre-installed people not community elected. We understood what we were doing when we set it to 7 because we wanted to remove the potential for a lack of community involvement in the process. Sorry, but no.
So you were aware of the jeopardy that you created?
We didn't create any jeopardy because there was an ability to go to more than 7. Minimum does not mean you have to set to minimum. A buffer could have been installed by the Intersect committee or whoever did it, who decided to only elect the minimum. There was always the opportunity for a buffer to be installed to prevent this scenario from happening. Sorry, I have to defend myself. We understood what we were doing.
Thank you for clarifying.
So, Johnny, are you actually saying what should happen here, right?
So we should actually elect more than just the minimum at this point, and increase it to 9 with a buffer, so that if people do retire, you're not creating this scenario again. This was not a problem with the governance parameter working group. It was a problem with people not imagining that people might retire.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we go back to Intersect and point out to them that they should be looking for more than 1 to replace this.
Precisely.
Right? Right. I think that's something that the committee. Do we have anybody who disagree? I mean, can I suggest that we task our secretary to go back to Intersect? They should be setting a number greater than 1, so as to avoid this problem in the future. Right? Does anybody?
Yeah. So I already mentioned this last week at the Cardano Summit when
Okay, so let's. I am proposing that we, as a committee, make that representation to Intersect formally, right? And do we need a vote on that, or does anybody wish to dissent? Because it's only basically a representation. Tech.
I think we allow people to dissent, Neil.
Okay.
So does anyone disagree with Neil's proposal? No. Then, thanks. Could you please convey that to the relevant parties within Intersect? I'm not sure who it is who's taken the decision to only appoint one.
There may be others that are here, and I will work with them to relay that information. I was going to say this may also be a topic to discuss at the next ISC meeting, as that it was my awareness that the Civics Committee may be consulted, or at the very least, obviously informed about this process, as everyone else has been. It was unclear that any other committee was going to have input, but again, I will still pass that along accordingly.
Great. I mean, the other thing we can possibly do in future is to reduce the min committee size, but we would need to discuss the ramifications of that.
I'll interject again. I agree that it could be reduced to 5 now because you don't have 3 installed members to work against. The problem is it requires an over 75% stake vote in order to get there. So in order to create a nice mitigation for any potential stalling of governance in future, the best thing to do in the meantime as a stopgap is to introduce that buffer of CC members and then introduce the policy or proposal to reduce it to 5 minimum.
So let's make sure that gets conveyed to Intersect text strongly, because the danger is that they're solving an immediate problem, but they're storing up the same problem in future. So we'll go through a series of a period of unstable governance if other members resign. And to be fair, I mean, Adam can maybe speak to this, but my understanding is the reason for the resignation is that the CC members put in a proposal to pay for their activity, and this was was rejected by the G-Reps. So the G-Reps essentially refused to pay for the work that the CC is doing. This has triggered the resignation of one of the CC members. Johnny.
I'll provide a little bit of context. Prior to becoming a newly elected CC, not interim CC member, the Cardano Atlantic Council in their own application said that they were going to bring forward this proposal as well, and it would be contingent on them getting funding to continue their work. So they didn't spring it on the community, but even so, they've made the decision that even if it passes the 50% threshold now, because we still haven't reached the end of that proposal as far as I'm aware, but even if it gets past 50%, they've made the decision to retire anyway, because there has been some public Twitter discussion about the gaming the system in such a way to get over 50% and then get another month of free governance from the CC members by not passing the 67% threshold of the Treasury withdrawal. Politics is being played, and they didn't want to be part of it anymore. So they said even if it passes the 50% threshold on the budget, they're going to retire anyway.
So that's where we are. Okay. So the issue's been raised. The TSC is aware of the situation. If anyone is interested, yeah, we've reached the age of 40. We've reached the age of we've certainly reached governance.
Yeah,
Sebastian.
in all its beauty.
in all its beauty. If what I would propose is, if anyone is interested in discussing the issue of becoming an individual or I've forgotten what your term was, collective CC member, let's do that out of band. So I'm happy to discuss that with anyone, either via Slack or via a chat, and then we can, as you were saying, Johnny, raising the issue of bringing in more CC members, I think is extremely sensible. So we don't want to create the same jeopardy and the same reduction in governance function. Great. Number of items we haven't covered. I would propose to address to raise those out of band and then to bring them onto the agenda at the start of next week. So, Bosco.
Just to give a short update on hard fork, if I may. So the hard fork working group is going to be formed based on a proposal for the things to be included in hard fork. There's going to be a meeting set up very likely starting next week, and this is just an update that we are going to proceed with that work in the weeks ahead, trying to get a sense of and to understand the impact first and to align on the communication paths before the Christmas time. So it's less to none time for it.
Great. So if you can keep us informed about
Yes.
timelines for doing that, Bosco. And I think we have some volunteers from this group to join the hard fork working groups. And please,
Yeah, the meeting invites will be sent in a day or two or whatever.
Okay.
But the meeting itself is already being created. I'm just collecting all this stuff in the meantime.
Great. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Sebastian.
As this is the latest and greatest working group, right? Reinstated as a subgroup of like the TSC oversight. Can you maybe offer, invite all the members? I personally would be interested. I said it in the past, so just to see if it is attainable for me, for example, I'd be interested, and maybe others too.
It is open to anybody really. So yeah. It will be. You will be invited explicitly then.
But don't feel obliged. Is the point? So please feel free to attend. Do attend if your contribution is essential, but otherwise don't feel obliged to join the hard fork working group.
Yep, true. Nothing else from me.
Thank you very much, everyone. Again, thank you very much to all the outgoing members, the people who served so diligently over the last year, and welcome to all our new members. We will have an exciting program going forward into the next meeting and beyond, and hopefully an exciting, a not very exciting end to the governance crisis. Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.